Welcome. I am Brian Germain, and this is Casual Chat, and I've got the coolest guest ever. I've got Espen Fadnes, who happens to be in the States at the moment, from Norway. Welcome, Espen. Thank you for joining us.
Thank you for having me, Brian. It's a new experience for me. I don't think I've ever been live on the podcast on Facebook, and yeah, exciting.
Yeah, for sure. It's cool. Yeah, last time was kind of an experiment, and we had nearly 1,000 people watching as we were doing it. So no pressure.
I'm just gonna try and outperform whatever I've done before. Just give 100%, and
that'll
be. I can feel the pressure.
No, there's no need. Well, I think if anybody can handle pressure, it's you. Right.
Well, I like pressure. I do. I kind of like being scared in a way. Feel the nerves, feel the tension. Makes me feel alive. And I'm sort of a hopeless person. I lose everything around me. I lose my wallet. I lose my keys. I lose my car. I lose my skis. I lose everything I have. But when I'm really scared, I tend to keep my stuff together. So it makes me perform a little better.
Yeah, it's been said many times that danger is forced enlightenment. You know, it wakes us up into this moment, and we fully show up because we know we have to.
Yeah, it really does, and you can see it in the airplane. I mean, I'm here in the land in Florida, and I can feel it myself. I can see it in all the skydivers in the airplane, even though they have thousands of skydivers. Everybody is checking the gear over and over again. It's kind of like compulsion moves happening, and it's because we're nervous. It's because we're aware that we are in a potential dangerous situation, and we take it seriously.
Yeah, for sure. You know, and of course, not everybody wears fear the same way. To experience adrenaline in a way where there's a lot of resistance and a lot of looping of negative visualization, I noticed that traps a lot of people and causes a lack of focus, a lack of creativity, a lack of happiness. And I mean, maybe you can attest to this as well, but you know, you're on an exit point and people are sort of sketched at about the winds or something. And sometimes people can get cranky.
Absolutely, and I can get cranky too. I've heard that expression, you know, where you attack, freeze, or flee. Run away.
Yep.
And you can see this in maybe especially in base jumping. You see this because in base jumping you have a choice. Yes. Well, you have a choice in airplane too, but when the green light is on, people tend to jump anyways.
Yeah.
But on the base exit point, you can just stand there forever and reconsider what you're doing.
Yeah.
And you can clearly see that the ones that stick in the game and stay there for many years are the ones that react in facing fear by trying to take control. They are checking the gear, they're going through the plan, they like to kind of gather as much information as possible, and they just don't want to jump off the mountain before they really have done their very best to take down uncertainty. Yeah. And then I've seen the other type that is sort of just looking around and trying to find almost like some comfort in other people's decisions, and they almost freeze a little and just need help. Yep. They do stay there for a little while because in the beginning it is quite an amazing experience to land safely on the ground. Yep. But they often quit. It's too hard for them. You can see it's almost those engineer kind of type of people that just really are particular and sit down and make sure that they have all the information they can. Yep. They love standing on exit points.
Yeah. It seems like if you do it too long, it creates too much energy in the body, you know, too much rethinking once you've already checked all the boxes, as it were. You know, I've checked my pilot chute, I'm all zipped up, everything's there, the wind is there, there's no reason not to go, technically.
Yeah.
But yeah, I think that there's a point where we make ourselves miserable.
People are different that way. I have friends that for some strange reason really enjoy hanging out on the exit point after they're completely ready. They just, I just want to sit down, look at the view. They just want to take some extra photos. They just want to wait. They just want to stand there. Yeah. I almost work like a skydiver. Like I check my gear, I make sure that everything is right, and then it's almost like mentally the green light is on and we gotta jump.
Yeah.
I'm ready. I just want to go.
Yeah.
Always like I just want to get it over with. I am nervous, and to be
Well, sure.
scared or to feel that sensation is comforting in some ways, because it makes me aware of that I am aware. But it isn't very comfortable to not have appetite for food, or feel your heart beating and be dry in your mouth and stuff like that. So when I am in those situations, I rather just go to the edge and go and perform.
Yeah, for sure.
And I do get grumpy if I'm one of my best friends, Yuki Sommer. He has a tendency of being kind of slow on exit point. He's like, he never have his GoPro ready. He's kind of like, he got to like build all these like systems of how he's going to film things, and he's also live streaming a lot on Facebook, and it just takes forever. And I'm just like, I had to hold back my grumpiness, because it is sort of my own inner battle of being taken out of my own routines and kind of adjusting to someone else's routines. But people are different.
Yep. Yeah, I like to, like, before I'm launching paraglider, speedwing, base jump, whatever, I'm one of those that it's not that I'm nervous. That's not why I'm not going. I do like to savor the moment, you know? Like, I open my Ben & Jerry's and I wait 5 minutes before it melts a little bit. So it's just the right moment for me. I love to meditate, you know, to just sit down with my paraglider lines behind me and everything's ready to go. But I'm not leaving because I want to just enjoy this moment a little bit longer before the kinetic energy starts. But I think it's an opportunity to get nervous for sure. But,
I always got to use this new word I learned from my girlfriend. It's a right moment. Was that good? I'm not English speaking native, but I kind of feel that's what you're saying. You know, you can't go too soon, or it's this moment where everything feels right. So letting things sink in. It's your moment. You kind of feel it, and then you go. Well,
that's a big one when you say feel, right? Because we tend to work from this mechanistic perspective of kind of our left brain a lot. In terms of checking gear and looking at the winds, and you plan the line, it's very left brain. But without this feeling aspect where we're in touch with our bodies, I feel like we're missing an element of wisdom.
I think so too. And you know, a couple of years ago, it was in 2012, I think I decided to try and go 100% fully professional in base jumping and wingsuit jumping and all that. And I realized that sometimes I do really well emotionally. It feels really good what I do, and I have a lot of happiness in the flying and in the jump and the preparation, everything. And other times, it's not that good. It's almost like I land and there's this nagging feeling of everything wasn't as it should be. So I went to Amsterdam and met with a sports psychologist. It was kind of on it was just by occasion that I met him, and he was really good at it, and he was working with the Olympic athletes, and he offered to help me out. And I went through a couple of days of just preparing and thinking through experiences I've had previous in life, whether it's been competing in alpine racing or walking in on oral exam or competing in air sport. And then he came back to me and had analyzed everything, and he said there are 4 things you should think of to kind of find your balance, like your zen when you compete and when you are to perform. And he said you should not drink the day before. You should get a good night's sleep, really important. You should eat well for breakfast. And then finally, remain happy. Just be happy. And he said that's the most important key if you want to perform. You have to be happy. And he said, looking at your stores and everything you experience, that might be even more important for you than other people I've met. And he said that all the things in advance of that, you know, eat well, sleep well, don't drink the night before, is making you stronger and making you more able to be happy. And I follow that, particularly in competitions. And I always, it's not necessarily just to stay happy, but one thing is, for example, I was at the World Championships in wingsuit flying in Sea Hills in November 2016. And it was a lot of challenges with that organization, because it's the first World Championships ever in wingsuit flying happening there. So of course it's going to be challenges. You know, the run isn't the correct way. The wingsuiters aren't doing as they're supposed to, and then I can just see the tension is growing in people, and people get annoyed. And I was just thinking back to 2012 in this session where he said, just stay happy. And the only way I can stay happy is just to kind of leave all this chaos, the outside chaos behind, and just focus on being happy, kind of try to be a positive impact to people around me, and get up in an airplane and just do my best.
Yeah.
Smile.
That's big, because of course, you know, as we look at the brain science, right? So depending on your mood, different centers in your brain are activated. And if we're trying for a holistic brain activation, where we have access to our wisdom, access to our skill in the moment, you know, where we don't have to think, we just react correctly. Happiness is one of the key features of what you might call the flow state, right? Where you enjoy this moment so much, and we can slip out of flow when something happens that startles us, or you know, we find ourselves wanting to attack, to recognize that it's essential for our safety and for our highest possible performance to get back into that joyful appreciation state of, wow, this is awesome. You know, this is amazing. Yeah.
It's easier said than done, isn't it? It's we all have our down days and up days, and a lot of people say, "Oh, you're so lucky you have this awesome life," and I do agree to a certain extent. If you're able to get up in an airplane and jump almost every day, you certainly have done something in life that have made you go in that direction, and it's great. But I can really feel those days when things aren't right, and it's not easy to get into that happy, stoked mode. I always envy some people. I do have some friends in skydiving that seems to always be so amazed.
Yeah.
Like Micah Couch, you know, from who lives in Dubai. She's always like, yeah.
Yeah.
And Louise from Tribu is like, wow, like every single time. And I look at them, I wonder if I could go to a course with them and just learn how to be that stoked every single time. Because that they learn, like their learning curve, like is peaking.
Always like it's new, right? Like
yeah.
Right, like a child just wide awake and so into it. Yeah. Lurch. I don't know if you've met Lurch. He's a great.
I have. Yeah.
And this guy lands it from every single jump. Every jump I've ever been on, and he is just hands in the air. Yeah. People are like, what happened? What was the big deal? He says, I jumped. It was awesome. You know, that was enough for him to get off.
Yeah, he's an amazing guy. I remember him from the FIA World Cup in England in 2015, and it was the first time I met him, and he made a huge impression. And it was a person that not just himself personally had probably the most fun at the competition, but he lifted everybody else. He put a smile on everybody's face. Yeah, and that is it's an extraordinary skill.
It is for sure. And I think it's the perspective that we're going to want to hold, because looking back, you know, because one of my intentions is to be a really old skydiver. Yeah. Really, you know, and still doing it, not just, you know, say, here's my old logbook from back when I used to jump, but 90 years old and still actually skydiving. And I don't want to have regrets on how I lived my life. You know, where I was trying to get the medals and trying to flog myself into success, beat myself into trying harder. I feel like that old guy is somewhere out there in time and space, that older version of me looking back on me now saying, lighten up, dude. Yeah. You know, love this moment. Love these people. Right
I guess you never regret what you do. It's just you regret what you didn't do. And I think looking back, like, there's so many times where I've been under pressure and been too stressed. You know, it's so heavy what I'm doing. And then when it's done, I look back at it. It's just, why did I stress so much? Like, I could have just calmed down a little in the moment. Yeah. And growing all in this game, it must be amazing. I see a bright future of being a very old skydiver and base jumper. It must be amazing. My mother, she is of course quite worried for me jumping, as probably all mothers of skydivers and base jumpers are. And I normally, whenever she expresses a worry, I say, "Mom, I'm going to drive up to your funeral at some point. I'm going to take the car and drive up. And before I take the ferry to Molde, where she lives, I'm probably going to stop by the troll wall and hike up and do a base jump before I walk to the funeral and hold a memorial speech." And my mom was just, "Oh, okay. And it's almost like, if I can get that, if that happens, I mean, it would be horribly sad that talking like, you never want your mom to pass away. That would be absolutely terrible. But if that happens, something I must have done something right.
Yes. Yeah.
Because probably that's going to happen when I'm quite old. So.
Exactly. Well, that's the whole idea, is to sort of segment attending. You know, people tend to focus on today, tomorrow, next year. But what about this longer journey? I wrote an article about that called The Long Haul, that people seem to like. This perspective is something that we need to keep adding in, because it changes the way we live our lives right now. You know, in terms of pushing a bad angle, right? Where it doesn't look right, the winds are up. You know, do you go or not? Is your ego pushing you forward into, you know, needing to achieve right now to fill some empty space? Or are you just an open container for joy, saying, yeah, you're welcome here, but if it's not right, I don't need to go?
Yeah, it's a super good book. How long have you skydived?
I started in 1986.
1986.
Yeah, I made my first base jump in 87. And
30 years anniversary?
Yeah, 31. Yeah, almost. Yeah.
31.
Yeah. So and I did my first wingsuit jump in 90, I think it was 99, 98, something like that. 98.
Wow.
Yeah. Adrian Nicholas sent me, he and Patrick were experimenting, and Katerina was building the suits, and they sent me one because I'm a parachute designer. He said, you know, can you fix this? Can you make it better? And so they sent me one, and I was like, well, only one way to know. So I jumped it, you know, of course, there was no training back then.
Incredible.
Yeah.
I started skydiving in 2000, and well, you can say the progression was a bit quick, but I put on a Birdman suit in 2001 after 1 year, and
classic.
And of course, it was a GTI.
Oh, stepped over the first. Yeah.
I actually went straight to the GTI. Sorry about that, Yari. Probably not the right progression, but I almost like. Sometimes I allow myself to say that I've been part of it quite a while, but at the same time, I was mentored by someone, and I met some really true good characters in the early 2000s that kind of guided me through the first couple of years, and many of them are still active. Many of them are still really good, both skydivers and base jumpers. They're in their 50s now. Mm-hmm. And to see how they approached it all, to see what risk-taking was in 2000, and see what risk-taking is today, we should be allowed to reflect a little on it. Yeah. Because these guys are still here. They have you are one of them, you know, skydived and base jump for well over 20 years, and still there. And for some reason, they choose not to be a meter above the ground. In a wingsuit, and for some reason they're still alive, and for some reason quite a few of those that have started the last 4, 5, 6 years in our sport are not here anymore. Yes. And I think we have some really good role models out there that have been part of the sport for more than 20 years, and I like hearing them speak.
Absolutely. Yeah, this is what my whole company, right? It's based on adventure wisdom. That's the concept, and you don't get wisdom in a day. You know, it takes a long time, but there are people that, as you say, you know, mentors, masters, you could call them from a you know, spiritual perspective, but people that have an angle on it where they're not pushing too fast, but they don't stop pushing towards expansion of skill, expansion of knowledge. Yeah, they're passionate, they're hungry for more understanding, and that's what I want to be when I grow up. You know, I'm not 50 yet, not till May. So I'm still a young spring chicken, you know.
Oh, damn. You started young then, back in '86.
Yeah, I was
Very young. It's interesting how it seems that people in their 50s that are active in skydiving and base jumping and paragliding and speed riding have more time than people in their early 20s.
Yeah.
It's a fascinating thought that we have less and less hurry the older we get in the sport.
Yeah.
Well, shouldn't it be the opposite? Or at least in theory.
Yeah. Yeah.
I don't have the answer for this, but sometimes, or actually quite often, we are progressing way too fast, and we allow our ego and desire to just explore very, very quick, stand in the way of some proper risk analysis and some proper kind of assessment of ourselves as performers there.
Yeah. That's to assess.
I'm guilty myself. I have been progressing super fast at parts of my time in air sport, both in skydiving and base jumping. Putting on a wingsuit a year after I skydived, for example, very good example.
Yeah.
And I do see, like, when I meet people today that are new in the sport, I just recognize myself. I just see them, and I just, how can I? Is it possible to just tell my story and say don't do that, but still, okay, but I'm alive, so maybe that's a bad example. But
but you're obviously not a bad example, because your vibe on the drop zone, just as a mirror for you, is very cool. Is not crazy passionate, like out of control speed. You tend to be, from what I can see, sort of focused, and you speak slowly, and you don't run like crazy to the airplane generally. And I think that is one of the key elements, I think, to surviving this sport, is moving slowly enough that your brain can keep up. That you can feel your body, you can feel your emotions, and listen to that guidance that comes in our bodies, because you're not going a million miles an hour.
I was thinking about it today, actually. I was watching, I was sitting in the airplane, and I've skydived for 17 years, and I've never had a cutaway. Wow. So I've actually never tried that, to have a malfunction and cut away the main and have that experience. I've tried on the ground many times. Yeah. And I do my fair share of practice on the ground to make sure that I can sort this out, especially in a new wingsuit and all. It's like, I really got to figure out if this is going to work. And then I was watching a person in the airplane just practicing, just really cool to watch, to see someone just like go okay, this is how it is. And I was looking at her and thinking, just doing it really slow. And then I was reflecting on it. I was sitting there. So I'm not a high level skydiving instructor or anything. I'm more of the doer, the performer. So I would probably be better off if I'd done more courses. But anyways, I was looking at her and thinking, that's really smart to do it slow, really slow. I can just see how she's doing it correct and slow, because, do it right. And then I was thinking about that, because quite a lot of the preparation I do myself, I do it very slow. But then when I do my own, I was just thinking of myself preparing for a cutaway. I'm like, well, and then I realized I'm gonna try and do it slower now. I'm gonna do what she did.
Yeah, pay attention to the details, and exactly, correct method.
Slow down.
Yeah, so that you have awareness. Yeah, I've had at this point 13 cutaways, and every time I felt the whole time like I'm trying to focus on each detail, and everything is like this, like a flashlight in a dark room. And the whole time I'm saying to myself, a little slower, try to do it slower, because I'm not really running out of time. I just feel like I'm running out of time. And in every time I look back and I could have done it slower. I had more time than I used.
Yeah.
And what benefit to my own awareness of little details, like, all right, I'm reaching in for the cutaway, but I got a piece of my jumpsuit, or I'm about to cut away, but what if I timed it just right in my spin or something where my reserve deployment was better? and it's not an easy thing to do. But I wonder what else can I do to sort of close that gap, to rehearse for the improbable. I think it's a good question to ask, for every skydiver to say, well, what if I put my hands on my handles on a normal opening, just slowly, just go through the motions. What if in free fall or as I'm flying my wingsuit, I assume I have a total and I can't get to my pilot chute, and I find a way to get my hand on my reserve ripcord. This is something that we don't do, and yet sooner or later odds are going to catch up with us where we have to do that improbable event. And if we've never gone there, we're going to rush, and we're going to panic, and we're going to be slightly ineffective, or maybe wholly ineffective.
Yeah, and actually to grab the handles when you're hanging on a canopy is something I've started doing now, because I very often put on new wingsuits.
Yes. And
the different manufacturers have often different solutions, and then you come a new solution for how the pallets or the pillows, or the handles are outside the suit, and most of the solutions are fairly good from different manufacturers. But no matter how good they are, you still have a wingsuit that have an edge right next to the handles. Mm-hmm. And I'm always curious, like on every new wingsuit I have, like if I now just grab, and I grab the kind of Norwegian way, the way I learned, so I don't grab like you do, but I actually grab one by one, and then I grab. And quite often I've had several experiences where I grab the wingsuit as well. Yes. I actually hold the wingsuit, and I don't take it, I don't cut away, but I just hold it and just think, I wonder if I, in a super stressful situation, would not kind of like dragging the wingsuit and nothing would happen.
Maybe.
I don't know, because I never had a cutaway, but I kind of stressed this point, and I wonder if I'm too stressed about it because I never had a cutaway myself. But I have addressed this to manufacturers. Contact them, say like, oh, I was thinking about the solution you have, and I'm really a bit worried about this material. And they often come back to me and says it's fine. Or, there's been hundreds of cutaways on the suit and seems to be good. And so maybe I'm too worried. But at the same time, when you have a new suit or a new rig or whatever it is, and to really hang on the canopy and have a look at how does it look like now, because it do look different than when you're standing on the ground, because you're sitting in the harness and things are kind of dragged up and
I hang people up when I'm training folks, and of course anytime I get a new wingsuit, I have a chin up bar, which is good for more than one thing, a door frame, and then I've got risers, and I use 18-inch risers, short ones, so I'm higher up, and I take the front riser and back riser and I attach them to themselves with a soft link. And so that way I can clip in and I hang in the harness and I see if the handles disappear, for instance, inside the suit. I get to see if, one of my wingsuits I realize under canopy, it chokes me. So I have to unzip after deployment. But I didn't know that until I hung up. So I practiced unzipping. And I have a blower fan that we sometimes use with training to inflate the suit a little bit and get used to what that's, what that element's going to be. But why not? Why not?
Yeah. The preparation. I'm when I'm here in the land now, I'm one of the things I'm doing is to start training on filming with a big red cam. I got it right here. So I just invested in a big ass camera. So I'm gonna put this on my head.
Medium format, or what is that?
This is a Red Epic Weapon. It's an 8K red camera.
Cool.
So pretty expensive.
Yeah.
So for all thieves out there, it's in the hangar. No, joking. But you know what? I've actually done quite a few base jumps with Red, and jumped out of helicopter with the single canopy systems. But I'm a little bit intimidated of the skydiving for one particular reason. I can cut away.
Yes.
And in base jumping, when you have one canopy, I never find myself in a situation sitting in a harness with a malfunction or something and cutting away. And I'm just trying to work my head around now and prepare to safely do skydiving with this camera. And I was just talking to some people here at the jobs, and they said, keep your head always like keep your head forward,
Mm-hmm.
keep your head there in case of a malfunction. And in base jumping, the camera actually touched the slider. So I'm that's what I'm working on now. So all advice is appreciated.
Right. Well, one of the
I should probably call Norman Kent or something.
Yeah. Well, there's a few different. Norman would be a good person to talk to Anton Eriksson, doctor in Sweden, who's also a wingsuit flyer. I would talk to him. He's part of the wingsuit wind tunnel.
Oh yeah.
But he's a physician and also has done a lot of research on damage to the body. The Navy did some experiments. They found that doing this during opening with a heavy helmet on is better than this.
Okay.
Some people say never look at your canopy. I've been looking at my canopy during opening with cameras on my head since the beginning. Never had a problem. Part of that is I'm test jumping, right? I mean, I don't jump normal parachutes, as you know, and so I want to see the opening. And so I'm always like this, and I've never had a neck injury, never. And I've been spanked, you know. Yeah, so I think it's an important the concept. I mean, we're still exploring the specifics of jumping with bigger cameras in our heads, and you know, what about cutaways? Can you cut away the helmet? Can you cut away the camera? Right? I've got a system now where it works with a GoPro. I don't know if we can engineer it for that, but probably where you're just releasing the camera from the helmet. I want to keep that. I need the helmet.
There is actually, I've seen that solution on a G3. It was one of the Swedish free fly national team members that had a GoPro, and it had a cable going through here, and it could release it off. It's a really smart, smart solution.
Absolutely, yeah. I think it's a really good unit. I've been testing that since it first came out. So, I mean, these are the kind of things that, so you get a little bit of angst thinking about it. You go, wait a minute, what would happen if one of my steering lines wrapped on my helmet and I had to cut away or something? I need to have a plan to address that fear, because if I just let go of the fear completely without a solution, I'm being an idiot.
Exactly. Yeah, and that's never gonna work. It's the more worried and aware you are that the danger is coming ahead, the more planning, the more effort you need to put into it. It's the only way, isn't it?
Yeah.
If you just jump into things without proper assessment, like properly thinking it through, it's gonna go wrong in the end.
Yeah. Well, I think that there's too much fear and there's too little fear.
Yeah.
And somewhere in the middle of that balance is where we're in this focused state. And to me, when I feel that initial wave, if I make the choice to sort of calm down and focus my mind on solutions, it doesn't feel like fear anymore. It's something else. I call it focus, but I suppose you can call it whatever you want. But to me, fear is a place of speed in my brain. It's a place of locked up and not being myself. And I know that leads in a direction I don't want to go.
I 100% agree. And I've never properly studied this or anything. And I have a Norwegian word called være redd, which is pretty much directly translated to scared. But I think in Norwegian we are more willing to use the word redd than people are willing to use scared in English, because I can hear in quite a few people that they don't like to use it. They rather want to say nervous or tensed or aware, or like other words that replaces it to put you less into the panic mode.
Yes.
And I really agree that when you tip over into that freeze panic mode, then you just have to step out of it. That's no good. But I can feel it sometimes. It's a long time since I felt it in air sport, because I just don't do it anyways.
Yeah.
But it often helps to think about the tasks that are ahead, and sort of I like to visualize what I'm going to do and try and figure out, why am I so nervous? Like, what is making everything shake here? Like, is it something I don't see? Something that my body sees, but not myself? And then I just start to kind of backtrack, like, all right, landing. Is it something about landing? No, it's a big landing field, green and nice. Is it wind? No, it's not a lot of wind. And I have a ground crew, and they're saying everything's okay. And I go back and back and back all the way up to the exit. And then sometimes I can identify that, yeah, definitely we should change the plan here, because I'm going to be on the inside of that turn, and then I'm going to be blind with turning around the corner, and it may be that it's, yeah, okay, this is not a good plan. Yeah. Or I just backtrack it all up to the start of the jump, and I realized that it's fine. I don't need to be this nervous. I can be fine.
Yeah.
And then it feels so much better to take control and think through everything.
Well, you're thinking. Yeah, I think that's what I'm hearing, is that you're not shutting down when you feel this fear. You're choosing to think rationally and focus on this. Is that the problem? Is this the problem? And I'm not sure that everybody does that quite so well. And I feel like that would be one of the areas we all have to sort of pick apart a little bit more, is what is my mind doing when I'm afraid?
Yeah.
You know, and am I able to satisfy those concerns through these rational processes? And it brings me back also to this idea of happiness as the background, as the contrast, because I realize something's wrong because I don't feel happy in this moment. Something's up, you know. So I hear my guidance, because normally I feel great. Normally before a jump I feel awesome. And why don't I feel awesome right now? You know, is it too windy? Have I gotten in over my head? Is this wingsuit too big for me? You know, I did that. You know, over wingsuiting, just like with teaching skiing, we say over terraining, right? When you take somebody, you know, to a slope that's too much for them, and you undo so much of what you've taught them.
Yeah, I've been skiing since I was a little kid. The kind of classic Norwegian thing to do. Yeah, and I've done that mistake. You know, helping someone into skiing. All right, you're ready, and then just bring them up to the top.
Yep.
And then it's terrible. Everything is just terrible. They're scared. They don't want to ski anymore. It's like I blow their whole experience, and they probably won't try to ski again. When you overstep and you step into that zone where it's becoming uncomfortable and not fun anymore, learning stops, happiness stops.
Yeah, exactly. Well, I mean, it can be restarted if you back down the terrain, but it does take a little bit of sit down and relax and find your zen, right, to get them into this memory of why they wanted to do it in the first place. Sort of coax them out.
I was fixing my camper here 2 weeks ago. I was actually in England, but I was fixing my camper. And anyways, I was at this garage trying getting some help, and the guy that worked there had a story, because he was a car racer, and he had a daughter. He really wanted to help getting into car racing, and he built her up through, you know, the go-karts and everything. And then he made a like special super good go-kart of some kind that she was going to race, and she was I think she was 7 years old, 7, 8. She was going to do, and then something happened and it just turned into gear, and he just span off with that young 7-year-old girl on, and he managed to run. She was doing everything right. She put on the brakes, she was screaming, and the go-kart was just going furiously and doing and the guy, like the father, managed to jump and lift up the whole go-kart, so it was just spinning there, you know, up in the free air, and he managed to turn it off. She never jumped back on a go-kart again. And she's now 10 years old, and that experience stopped, like that emotion to be given that at the age of 7. She was like, I don't want to. It's
a formative experience, and I think it's very important for parents. And you know, we're all sort of self-parenting. Anytime we run into a trauma, before that becomes, like, I think of it as like liquid lava. Before it cools off and solidifies as a long-term memory, we got to get back on it. You know, carefully, slowly, before you have a fear of, you know, I mean, you know, I have a pet snake back here. He's 7 feet long, right? And I hadn't taken him out of the cage in about a year, because the last time I tried to take him out, he bit me. I was bleeding all over the place. And it took me a while to sort of get up the motivation to do this. And I think it would have been easier if I had just, you know, maybe meditated ahead of time, you know, sort of find my own center and go about it the right way. It would have been better. But instead, a year later, it took me like the better part of an hour of sitting there with the top of the snake cage open, and he's looking at me, and he's sort of half coiled, and I'm looking right in his eyes going, it's okay, I'm your friend. You know, we talked for a while, and then I got him out, and I got to show all the kids. I had some friends over with their kids and walked around the house, and everything was fine. But I feel like this is an important metaphor. You got to take the snake out of the cage after he bites you. Maybe not immediately, but soon.
Yeah.
Soon.
What is it saying? Get back on the horse.
Yeah.
Get back in the airplane. Yeah, it's you got a snake and you take it out of the cage, and it's poisonous.
No.
Okay. So it's not poisonous.
No, I'm not stupid. No, it's a jungle carpet python, an Australian snake. He's a constrictor. Yeah.
You know, I never had a snake.
Yeah.
I don't know why, but it was. I had a dream the other day where I dreamt that my girlfriend had a snake. It's like a pet, and then I dreamt that she had it in bed, like, you know, a pet in bed. And I woke up and I was freaking out by this snake in bed. I was just like, "Get that snake out of the bed!" And she was looking up at me, just, "What are you talking about?" I was like, "Get the snake out!" Like, the snake. She's like, "What are you talking about?" I said, "Snake!" And then I woke up and I was just like, I'm standing next to the bed, just screaming to her about the snake, and I was dreaming.
Well, welcome to my life.
Whoa!
When I met Laura.
Yeah.
And, you know, she took me back to her house, and I saw in her bedroom she had a snake. This was not my snake. I've had lots of animals in my life, including snakes, but yeah, not like this. It's a huge one. And I think it was kind of the dragon that protected the princess, you know? So if the guy couldn't handle the snake in the bedroom, well, you know, he's not tough enough for her.
Wow.
So here I am 10 years later, and I still have the snake.
And it's bitten you how many times?
4 or 5. Yeah.
But is it painful? Is it worse than a bee or?
No, it's just a laceration, but it's this moment of adrenaline, right? Yeah. Where you get the sharp focus of a malfunction, or, you know, I mean, I'm sure that you've had line twists on a base jump.
Yeah, I have.
And in that moment where you realize that you've got line twists, and for this moment, there's nothing you can do about it. Just for this, I mean, we find that you know, preventing line twists, you can spread the risers. Afterwards, you push them together, seems to be helpful. But other than that.
It's a genius thing.
Right?
Yeah, I was just I'm kind of interrupting you now, but I remember I was watching. This is like, you can say a lot about social media, you know, it's pushing the sport to all these GoPros and all this stuff. But I'm actually learning heaps by just being on Facebook and watching all of this people around that are bold enough to show their mistakes or show that they've found some new tricks. And I remember this video of a person that grabs his risers and twists them, you know, twist them behind here though, but just twist them down so they come all the way down, and then you can get out of it.
Yep. And
I watched it, and I tested it, and it's such a genius thing.
Yeah.
And I mean, I am a line twist, you know, big ass wingsuit, and I can end up sometimes the bag hits my heel during deployment, and I get 10 line twists.
Yeah.
Not a pack job in the wall can save you when the bag hits your heel, and that way of getting out of line twist is amazing.
Yes.
You know, I just see it sometimes. I see people in base jumping at line twist, and I just watch them, and I see the line twist is quite high above them, and they're kind of battling to try and get out, and I'm just like, come on, just put them together. You're going to start it. Come on, please.
Yeah. The lower the twist is, the wider the canopy, right? The
exactly.
canopy flattens out. It flies happier.
And if it's only 2-3 line twists, you can even grab above the line twist and just punch through and get out of it.
Spin yourself, yeah.
So that video was
I have in higher performance canopies gotten into spins where it was fast enough, where the G-force is built up, where I wasn't able to do that. So I always have to point that out, is that it usually works, but if you're spinning fast, it's 2 bars of steel. You're not going to be able to turn that thing, and that's what your handles are for. That said, I have effectively unstowed steering toggles and stopped spins from that as well.
Wow.
Not recommended with spectral lines because they melt together from the friction.
They do?
Yeah, I've seen that happen. Yeah, my friend broke a line that way. But if they're not spectral lines, sometimes unstowing the brakes and slowing the canopy down and forcing it to hold a heading, if you can figure out which is the right way to go.
Yeah.
Right.
If it's other way, you gotta think. So it's that way, so you twist, and that's the opposite way now.
Yeah, exactly. Well, I usually look at the canopy itself, and I'll say to myself, out loud, "Canopy's turning left, steer right." It just, that helps me. I'll actually yell it out loud. Nobody can hear me anyway.
Yeah, if we had been driving a car together and you said, "Espen, turn right," I would turn left. So that's how it doesn't work for me.
That won't work, yeah. Yeah,
Too technical.
Yeah, well, this is, I mean, the idea of getting into this moment of the line twists or whatever kind of traumatic experience, and see if we can infuse it with more awareness. Not panic, but awareness and focused action. That's the right thing. You know, that's the right technique. I think that's what this is all about. You know, getting back into the hot kitchen, because that's the only place you can cook. You know,
it really is. And another thing is, okay, so I was working in the military for a while, and you know, have all this training, scenario training, and drills, and they were testing me on some complex scenarios, and the instructor said, "Espen, you have a problem." Okay, yeah, I have many problems, but he said, if you just see the scenario for 1 second before you do it, you already have a plan. You just follow the plan. So we need to blindfold you and just put you in the situation so you cannot plan, because you never get the chance to actually train on something occurring all of a sudden. And then later on, I was reading this book called Thinking Fast, Thinking Slow by Kahneman. It's a great book about the two different ways you think. One is the intuitive, automatic way where things are kind of flowing. And then it's the one where you really think heavily, like on a challenging equation or something.
Yes, we have
and what occurs to me is that the times in base jumping where I had malfunctions or really bad situations, I don't think, it's like, for some reason, it seems that it's not only me, it's just many people I see this over and over again. Like, people are facing critical situations. They're super skilled. People are quite amazing at getting out of bad situations.
Yeah.
And it's not necessarily that they're stressing anything. It's like, boom, 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 boom. People are just doing everything super efficient, dead on. And I think if they had been almost in a scenario, like, all right, now you're going to be trying to solve a very challenging situation, then they would almost freak out. Yes. Because they know, okay, now it's going to be a bad situation, I need to solve it, and then they start thinking and they get complicated. I think
there's slack in the tow rope, right? So if you've ever been water skiing or surfing, right, if you get a little slack in the rope, you know, a little freedom to think too much, then you don't have this direct connection, and the flow state isn't working so well. I think this is it. You know, when I was thinking back to the moment in China where you guys were flying down the line along the cable cars.
Yeah.
And you had this moment where there was no time to think, and yet you did enough, right? Maybe if you were to plan for it, maybe you could find a technique that you rehearsed enough that was even more efficient, but what you did worked.
Yeah. Yeah, it did. It was interesting, that situation, because it's like everything is happening in almost like frames, like images. It's like images. I can sense in my body that something is wrong because the leg wing is flapping and I'm probably in a bad body position. Something isn't right. I'm not sure. Still today, I'm not sure exactly what was wrong, but it's, you know, it always go back to your body position and how you perform. So something was wrong. And I ended up kind of sliding the wingsuit, and all of a sudden I'm sort of facing the cable car.
Yeah.
And from there on, it's people are often asking, "Were you scared? Or wasn't it uncomfortable?" No, it wasn't uncomfortable at all. It just is. It's just you're just there in the moment, and you just do whatever it takes. And I had one frame just before it happened where I'm seeing Yuki Sommer on my left-hand side, and I'm sort of on my way to crash into the cable car. So I know, and this is something I'm not reflecting on, but it's sort of I'm turning away from the cable car, but not a lot. Like I could have turned more, but it's sort of a little bit, just get it out, like a tiny touch, because I can't crash with Yuki on my left-hand side. And everything is just happening within 2 seconds maybe. And then I land and I feel almost like I want to vomit for 2 days. That's what happens. Just like, what am I doing? Like, how can I put myself in a situation? Terrible. And, you know, all this like, punishing myself, how could I do that? But in the moment, it's just this snap, 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 and
Right. Yeah, there's interesting studies now with quantum physics where they have random number generators, and people are able to sort of listen, and it comes from the heart. The heart actually reacts, where people are able to predict from this random number generator a statistically significant number of what's about to happen, or images where they show, here's a flower, here's a pretty scene, here's a gruesome, disgusting thing with somebody's arm chopped off, and here's a pretty mountain scene, and here's a baby, and here's, you know, somebody with their guts spilling out. And right before the image that's gross, right, this is randomly generated, the person is able to see, you call it through the ether or slightly forward in time a few seconds. And the heart knows it. It's not the brain. It's the heart that reacts.
Yeah.
And we're able through this higher self, because when you think about an infant being generated, the brain doesn't form first, it's the heart. And so I think that this is one of our key elements in terms of tapping into wisdom that can get us out of trouble. You know, to give us that little bit of buffer across time, or whatever you want to call it, to, you know, have a little bit of a hint of what's about to happen. Yeah.
It's interesting, so interesting how, you know, we know so little about our body, how we sense things and understand things and put things together, and it's everybody's talking about, or a lot of people talking about that feeling, like sense something, you know, you sense something was wrong, something was going to happen, that feeling. And there's something there, and we know so little about it, and it's very fascinating. And I can't put up a personal specific experience, but I've heard many people talk about it, that they almost annoyed with themselves. You know, something happens, a terrible accident or something bad happened. And then looking back at it, we're going to go through what was actually the talk at the top, what was happening there. And then there could be more than one person expressing, like there's, you know, they don't feel it. There's something wrong. There's something, there's not everything is correct. And, and why do they feel this? What is it? I'm personally, I'm a kind of like, I believe in physics and science, and I've always been, I always like that. I'm kind of raised that way, but this part of us is very fascinating, and it just balances in between what we know in science and also what we believe, and you know, how we kind of anticipate that we work, and quantum physics is a subject that is, you know, people have worked a lot on it, but it's still just almost like we're touching the surface of it.
Yeah, we're absolute babies, but we do have our own experience. We do have our own, all these data points that are real, you know, and so from a scientific perspective, if you have a funny feeling where you shouldn't do something and you do it and then it turns out bad, that's a data point that you had guidance. You know? And it seems to me that when I've been miserable for a while, like I wake up on the wrong side of the bed, I don't get a chance to meditate, I don't have my moment of listening to the birds, and I'm just sort of tumbling through my day, high speed and cranky, I don't hear my guidance, because I don't have the background of happiness to show me this illuminated, backlit, illuminated dark spot of a negative emotion saying, Brian, something's about to happen. That's my cosmology of how my own guidance works. And so if I'm suffering from miserable bastard syndrome, it's like my antennas go and I got nothing. I don't have
and it's super interesting. I kind of believe that the whole body is part of this ability to remember and sense and feel and have, you know, because we remember things through what we taste and smell and feel, and the balance, like, you know, you sense, it's almost like get deja vus by all these different senses. And I sometimes think that, you know, if I see myself in this, that my body is trying to tell me something. I don't know what it is, because it's way too smart for me to understand what it's actually dealing with, because the body is remembering something that is putting together with the situation I'm in now, and because of those it can understand that this is not necessarily smart. You shouldn't necessarily go down this hallway or jump off this mountain the way you do. But I'm overwriting it with my brain, because I'm like, no, because I have packed my canopy well, and the wind isn't bad, and the landing area is good. So I sort of overwrite this feeling, and I just do it.
Yep.
And I do it over and over again. And again, I gotta mention my friend Yuki Sommer, because he don't. If he feels that something isn't right, he walk down again. And I normally give him a bunch of shit for it, because it's a perfect sunny day. And he's like, no, I don't feel it. And I'm like, come on, you can't just say you don't feel it. I was like, nah, but something wrong. Like, there's something about the vibe here. And say something isn't right. Like, nobody is going to push me off this mountain anyways. I'm like, and then later on, I just sort of like calm down and there is something about it.
Yeah, I think there is something about it. Maybe the most sane approach is something in between the two, of not always yes, and not being swung around by our emotions, because some of the emotions are not generated by rational thoughts, right? Some of our emotions are based on neurosis and in flashbacks from the past, where this looks or smells or feels similar to a bad experience we had, and we're projecting this when actually everything was going to be fine if I could just get my head under control.
Yeah.
So, where is that balance between the two, where we're listening to guidance, and when the green light really is on in every way, we go, when it's okay, to have the, I guess maybe it's approaching it as like, maybe I hope it'll work, as opposed to, I don't know, but if everything comes together, I'll do it. It's two different directions that come at the same thing.
But it's how people say that you can't jump off a mountain without being 100%, or you shouldn't jump out of an airplane without being 100%. The thing is, 100% is equal no uncertainty. And if there was no uncertainty in what we do, nobody will die, get injured, anything. It's just perfect every single time. No uncertainty means that there is no chance for the consequence of, for example, dying or something. But there is every single time. There is a little tiny, maybe a little bit or more. There's something there. And that uncertainty is playing with emotions, and you have to sort of use the brain and your insight, and it's like this super complicated puzzle of information, uncertainty, emotions, and then you just gotta be, your own project every time. Yeah, landing a good decision or landing a good summary or conclusion.
Right. Yeah. It's been said many times that it's our risk assessment really is perceived ability weighed against perceived risk.
Perceived
ability.
Yeah.
Skill.
Yeah.
To handle this specific risk, and it's my perception of the risk.
Yeah.
I'm valuing emotionally, and it's my perception of my own skill that weighs against it. I'm not always that good at evaluating my skill. Sometimes I underestimate it. Sometimes I overestimate my skill. And the same with the risk. I've had lots of perceived risks that were, they felt like a high risk to me. It was actually totally sane. There was nothing wrong here. Singing a song in front of a large group of people in your underwear. Are you really at risk? And yet you'd probably be sweating if you had 10 minutes to think about it before doing it.
It's a great example, and I was thinking because perceiving risk is it's based on knowledge. Like if you don't know, you will never see. Like you can't perceive and understand risk if you don't understand what risk is. And I was organizing on a boogie down in Morocco for Christmas, and we were jumping out of a porter. Porter was kind of cramped in, and we were trying to do 4, 5, 6 ways with wingsuits. And then we had a couple of close calls where we had 2 before we had to just stop and just rethink the whole thing. What happens is that the last person in the group is kind of cramped into this porter, and for some reason is struggling to get out of the airplane. So just goes out, lose control, ends up on their back, of course falls much slower than, no, much faster than the group. Yeah. And then combining this with that people are jumping on a porter and the whole formation is supposed to turn off the run, but because people are struggling a bit with this cramped quarter, people aren't really, they aren't able to turn immediately, and all of a sudden you have situations where you have a wingsuit passing by on their back, like right next to people's heads, and then I realized that this is a risk that I haven't been able to see.
Yes.
I haven't seen it before I saw it, and then it was too late, because now we just ended up in a situation where it was just luck that someone didn't get injured. I was the organizer. My 100% my responsibility to organize something that is safe, but I didn't see it coming.
Yeah.
And so I have all these skills, understanding of how good I am or the others, and then I have all this risk that I'm assessing and understanding, but I will never understand everything. It's just, and that's so typical in skydiving in all these air sports, that almost every time something bad happens, we increase our knowledge in why it's dangerous. It's like, whoa, that happened. Well, that's interesting. Never seen that one before. And then just builds and builds and builds.
Yeah. I think that's the fun part, isn't it? To be a student of risk. Leaning forward into this, it's like we're watching a lecture and leaning into it going, okay, what else don't I know that I don't know? Give me more, because my knowledge empowers me, and it makes me not only safer, but it gives me more latitude for joy. I can have more fun, if I'm more knowledgeable.
Absolutely. I think this is something that is normal for a lot of skydivers and base jumpers that have been part of for many years, but also, like, the more years you have in the sport, the more you want to learn, and the more you realize that you don't know. It's like this jungle of information and possibilities and flying techniques and equipment, and there can be so many different things, and
opinions
and opinions as well. And there's so much to learn. It's just amazing. And isn't that the whole point of it all? To just have this learning curve, like that's what brings joy, at least for many, me as well, just to get new knowledge. And I think the learning curve doesn't always steadily go up. No.
If you were to plot the overall lifetime, sure, but there's a lot of this, or like, the first time I jumped.
Is it ever going like this, or is it?
I think that it drops down. I think there's times where I was talking with Jay Maletsky last week about people going to canopy courses, and we say, all right, we're going to try to pay attention to what you've been doing so we can leverage the knowledge of your habits. But at the same time, I'm going to give you so many novel ideas that you're going to break down these habits to the point where you're going to make new mistakes. You're going to feel completely confused and overwhelmed and scared because you're outside of your comfort zone, and you're going to suck a little. But it's a new kind of suckage. It's the kind of suckage where there's awareness of this novel experience, and you're trying something that is not normal for you. And I think it's the only way to get above our plane out. People do plane out. They keep doing the same stuff. And
or maybe knowledge can sometimes make performance decrease for a little bit, because the knowledge is challenging you to do things differently. Or I guess that's just a different way of explaining the same. But about how insight can actually decrease performance. I'm working as a freelancer at Voss Wind, the wind tunnel in Voss, and all the really good instructors there, the ones that have been there for years and have seen tons of first-timers coming, especially first-timers, is saying that the people that come into the tunnel and end up sitting watching people fly for an hour or two before they actually have the introduction and then that they go and fly, those people perform less well often than the people that just show up, get 2-3 bullet points, go in and just fly. It seems like if you get too much information, you're not able to properly use it, or at least not when you have 1.5 times 2 minutes to try and make it useful. And maybe that's something to remember for people that are instructors or organizers, that you may feel that you need to constantly give people feedback, more and more feedback. They should do this, they should do that, and for every jump or for every time you fly with them. But when you're a new beginner, or I can just speak for personal experience, just trying to learn how to fly free flying, for example, something I tried to learn the last couple of years. just if people are telling me 3, 4, 5, 6 things I should do better, I just end up sitting in the airplane below. Like I just can't. I can't cope with
right one bit
one thing. One thing.
That's enough. Yeah, it's true. We get overwhelmed.
Yeah.
And so I notice as a teacher that there's this desire to not overteach and create overwhelmment. And the other side is if we go too far that direction, we have students that are not prepared for the eventuality of the malfunction or the spinning wingsuit on your back. If you don't have a plan for that, you don't know what to do. So there still has to be, you're always flirting with overwhelmment. But I think that maybe we should consider if we're going to have a student with a lot of information in their head, to have a period of time, 5 minutes or more before, where you're just talking in simple terms.
Yeah.
Here's what I want you to focus. Forget all that other stuff. It's in your head if you need it. But right now, I want you to meditate. I want you to sit here silently, look in my eyes. I'm not scared. It's going to be okay. How about your breathing? Let's focus on that. I think that's important as well.
That is something that I'm very curious about. I was actually thinking about it in the airplane today because I was reading an old Skada book from the mid-90s where it said that breathing is almost like the foundation of proper flying. Free fall. You gotta breathe. If you don't breathe, you're just stressing out. You're not doing well. Yeah. And then I'm thinking about myself, and I have no idea how I'm breathing. So I was just trying to. I was thinking, okay, today I'm gonna think about the breathing, but I was given too many tasks, so things to try and remember, so I forgot about the breathing all day. So I guess that's going to be my task for tomorrow. But maybe some meditation first would be an idea.
Yeah. Absolutely. Well, what is meditating but noticing your breathing?
Yeah.
Because if you say, I want you to think about nothing.
Is that possible?
With lots of training, I've gone away to ashrams in the mountains where all I did was sit and meditate for a month and not talk.
Yeah. Wow, you've done that?
Yep.
Wow.
And you do get really clear. After some time, you are able to just sit down and experience nothing but this present moment with an empty mind. And then you have another thought, you do. But it seems to me that even when you're there, you are focused on something. You're focusing on your breathing and in your body. Yeah. There is something going on of the air going in and out, slowly controlled breathing. That's not nothing. So the mind needs something. You're a sentient being. You're not really trying to shut off. You're trying to shut off the busy mind.
Yeah. I really want to do that. It's just that I have this project going on now, and then I'm going to work in the tunnel all summer, and then I have to prepare this wingsuit team, and then I got to go and do the wingsuit competition, and then it's Christmas, and then,
I know.
The hard life of a skydiver.
Oh, it's so
and then all the social media, I got to update.
Well, I just suggest.
How do you get time to go to India and meditate?
Well, that was a number of years ago before I had kids.
Yeah. I don't even have kids. I should have time to do that stuff.
Yeah, well, you're still young.
I don't know about that, but at least I don't have kids.
I was 42 before I had my first one.
Yeah?
You met my kids. They're fun.
Yeah.
They're fun.
And you have really cool kids though. You have the kids that can hang out even when you're up skydiving or something. They're super kids.
Yeah. Well, they relate to adults in the way that adults relate to adults. So they're not playing the role of kid. They're just being a person on the drop zone.
Yeah.
Which is, I think, important. And my next door neighbor all the time says, man, every time I see your kid, we have like this half an hour conversation like adults. And he's so shocked that he's talking to a 7-year-old kid. Like, yeah, they're not stupid. They're just young.
Maybe they have a dad that likes discussions.
Yeah. Yeah, well, there's that for sure. Yeah. No,
it's really cool though. That is amazing. There's not a lot of kids that can do that.
Yeah.
To just really engage and be that aware.
I feel fortunate that I have the kind of kids that are up for that. But you were raised in some ways the way I'm raising my boys, where you were, skiing from the time you were little and hiking and climbing and all, just like we do. And I think it's a value judgment for a parent to say, this is something that's important. I believe that adventure and in the lessons we learn along the lines there, it's as valuable, if not more valuable, than what they're getting in school.
Yeah, and I think I was personally raised quite, I wouldn't say strict, but it was very clear red lines around me when I was a kid. I had to go to bed at a specific time. I had to sit at the table until I've eaten up my food. I had to sit until the last person was done eating dinner, for example. Yeah. But they never stopped me from exploring. Mm-hmm. And they even encouraged me to do so. If I wanted to climb up a tree, if I wanted to make a zip line from the top of a tree down to the balcony, or it could be anything, they were just, all right, be careful. That was what they could say, be careful, but that was pretty much it. And my dad often said, hey, tell me if you need some help. Yeah. And then I was just out there exploring. I could go, I don't know, I could go skiing midnight, like in darkness, walk up in darkness, just ski with the headlamp when I was a kid, and it was fine. And I sometimes was really scared because I thought it was dangerous animals in the forest, but I was allowed to do all that stuff. And I walked to school from first grade and all that. And looking, I'm not a parent, and I guess things are quite different now compared to what they used to be. But if you want a kid that is independent and like to explore and have the courage to try and step out of the comfort zone and do cool things, they got to be allowed to explore the world from the age of 6 months, 3 months. Like you can't like protect them like a fragile vase until they're 15, and then all of a sudden they're going to do something. They're going to just be these freaked out kids. Or that's my opinion.
I agree with you. And it creates a certain kind of person that is not a spectator in life, that is actually leaning into it and doing their best to explore the details and learn consequences. To learn the consequences of failure, I think
absolutely
it's vital.
It's sort of like, well, I'm not going to help you to climb in the tree, but you can climb as high as you want to if you do it yourself.
Yeah.
Someone's like, figure it out.
Yeah.
And if they are allowed to figure this out when they're really young, they're not going to climb 50 meters up in the tree. They're going to climb maybe 1 meter and then fall down and hurt themselves a little. And then they figure out that, oh, it's kind of painful to crash. You got to be a bit careful.
Yeah. It suddenly you're reminding me of last year. Laura's mom was visiting, and she came running into the house in a panic. She's, I don't know how to deal with this. And I came outside, and Joshua is up in a tree. I guess this was 2 years ago. He was about 5. He climbed up his climbing tree, and he was up at the edge of the gutter. I mean, he was, I would say, probably about 4 meters up at least, maybe more. Yeah. And he's just, he's hanging from his arms, swinging, no feet on. This is what he does because he's explored his limits. He knows what he can and can't do already. But she didn't raise her kids that way.
No.
And
few people do.
Yeah, Laura became an adventure person sort of in spite of that. I guess because she was the youngest of 4 and she wasn't, watched as much. So that's why she is who she is. But I feel like a lot of parents could take a closer look at that, and we don't want them to just be haphazard adventure people because they get hurt and killed, right? Some, some do. So how do we raise and continue to nurture within ourselves the kind of person that does become an old, wise teacher of adventure?
Yeah,
a guide.
For some reason, and I don't have the answer for this, but this is an observation. For some reason, some kids break their legs, and some kids don't.
Yeah.
But both of them are willing to explore and go there. It's just for some reason, some kids are like yeah, that might not be that smart, to jump from 5 meters down there, but I'll jump from here where there's 3 meters and it's still fun, but I'm at least not going to break my legs. But some kids just, they go for it and they get injured. And I can see that a little bit in air sport as well, in skydiving, for example, that we're all risk takers, aren't we? Like, we're all willing to jump out of that airplane. But for some reason, some people are like, yeah, I'm not going to downsize to that canopy immediately. Nah, I'm not going to try that 270 before I figure out how to, do a search and little, use the front straight forward and things like that. Just for some reason, some people are just kind of overboard. They have heaps of stories of breaking legs and bones and head and like everything just since they were kids, and they're still going in the same direction. They're still just hooking themselves in the ground, and then there's like, I'm going to wingsuit proximity fly. I was like, oh god, that's we'll see about that. And I wonder why some are able to push, but just push so much, while others are just way off. You have the answer, but I don't know.
I don't have a direct answer because it seems like they're all somewhat different. But I think one of the possible answers is that some of them are really good at listening to their gut. They might have this full-on attitude, but they're not all thrust and no rudder, like Tom Pyrus used to say. There is a throttle control there when there is a bad feeling, to throttle back a little bit and gain a little bit more control by reduced velocity. Some people have that, and there's feelers that not only feel the gut sensations, but also they're able to feel their body better.
Yeah.
I think that's also part of it.
Yeah, and I also think that people that are allowing themselves to feel that, or do feel the fear and allow themselves to kind of feel that gut feeling like, no, I don't feel this, they're the kind of people that stay in the sport. They find joy in that, to cope with these emotions, and they work on it. While a lot of the people that don't really feel it and they just charge, they might be skydiving for a couple of years, maybe 3, 4, 5 years maximum, and then they just like, nah, they're going to go over to motor biking or something else that is maybe giving them more adrenaline or more, because it's not that exciting anymore to jump off a mountain or to jump out of an airplane. I don't know, but I can just, in myself, for example, I'm still seriously nervous when I jump off a mountain, and I'm nervous in the airplane, and I really work on it every day. Every time I jump, it's the same thing. It's like I got to go through the routines. I got to work on it, and it keep it a bit spicy. Everything is just it make it all very exciting. Make it a task every time, and it make it joyful. Like I still have the preparation airplane. It's like still really not nerve-wracking, but I can feel that tension and the energy, that electrical energy in the airplane. And I'm still in the moment, flying in free fall, and wow, it's so amazing. And then I feel the joy landing, like hearing the birds sing a little louder than normal, feeling the smell of the grass, and to allow yourself to feel that, I think also gives you the opportunity to continue to be excited about whatever discipline in air sport you do, or anything else in life that is maybe a little bit spicy.
Yeah, let yourself feel. Let you ride the wave of emotion and know that what goes down will come back up again, and just keep moving forward. Yeah. To not disconnect the heart, to not.
Exactly. No, never. If you disconnect the heart, then what's the point of it anyways? Then you're just robot. What are you then?
Yeah, robot skydiver.
Yeah.
I don't want to be that.
I've seen a few of them. They maybe have done a little bit too many days in a row at the drop zone. They just like go and go and go and go. Yeah. You want excited people, whether it's tandem instructors, AFF people, free flyers, organizers.
Yeah. Inspired.
Inspired and stoked.
Exactly. Yeah, to live in Stoke. Yeah. There you go. That maybe that's the name of your new book, Living in Stoke.
Well, maybe that, or coping with your fears.
Yeah.
Or enjoying your fears. I mean, that's the word.
Well, I think so. That's a that's a really one of the threads that I'm seeing going through the whole conversation is don't be afraid to be afraid.
Yeah.
And sort of revel in the fact that this is exciting, and you may choose to push the abort button. Sometimes you don't have a choice about that one.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah,
no.
But you just go and keep making decisions.
Yeah. I was so it seems that I can cope fairly well with jumping off a mountain, but standing in front of people and holding a presentation have always been this big fear in mine. It's super scary to just hold a presentation with heaps of people. Yeah. And the interesting thing is that when I'm standing on a mountain, I can always just nah, I'm gonna go down. I don't feel it. But when you have 400 people in front of you and it's 5 minutes until you're gonna go on stage, you can't really fail. You can't really I'm not gonna do it. I don't feel it. I'm too nervous. It's shit. I gotta do this.
Yeah.
I have to. There's no choice. I am going up on the stage.
Yep.
I wish I was a little better prepared, but I'm going to do it. But the interesting thing, though, is that skydiving and maybe especially base jumping have helped me to overcome that fear and become better at it. Because it's almost like in a mini version, every time I jump, whether it's out of an airplane or off a mountain, it's like this mini feeling of the same. It's like the preparation. Mm-hmm. You step on the stage, you're performing, and it's really fun to perform. And then afterwards, it's almost like euphoria of happiness because you hopefully mastered it well. And then the same thing happens on stage, and the more you do it, the better it feels. And it gives what do you call it? It gives effects at other places in life.
Yeah, well, that's where I was about to point it is it seems to me that every time we break through fear or enough to move forward and enough to succeed through that specific task, we're learning something about ourselves, which is I'm capable of calming down enough to function. Maybe I'm not going to get all the way to calm. I'm not going to be, in Zen mode before I exit an airplane or off a cliff or anything like that, but I can calm down enough and I can focus on these details and I can take that confidence. Right? Yeah. I can take that confidence in myself to push through the next fear experience.
Absolutely.
I can extrapolate that message that I am the kind of person that can handle myself in a crisis. And I start to believe in myself enough to superimpose that to something else, right? I mean, I think that what you learned on the ski slopes as a kid, just like I did, ski racing was my life as well for a long time. That message of even when things get funny, I can refocus and solve, and I can apply that to everything in my life, which is why I am a huge advocate of adventure in general.
Yeah, it's really cool that you say it, and I really believe that we can do. We are capable of so much more. Mm-hmm. I am, you are, we are all capable of so much more, and we are held back by both the actual risk of what we're about to do, which is good. But we're also held back by this felt risk that isn't necessarily that good. There's like this inner demons almost that is holding us back from fulfilling our potential in whatever we do, whether it is to go on a date with this girl we really like, or going to a job interview, or a presentation, or jumping out of the airplane. It's like anything you do. We all have these demons, these things that is just like kind of cramping in. And every time we're able to overcome it a little bit, take a little, like one step further, we get better at overcoming the next. It's kind of like people say that the hardest second language or the next language you learn is the second, and then it gets easier on the third language, and the fourth language, and fifth gets easier and easier. I don't really know, but because I only speak Norwegian and English, but I think it almost is like that with risk taking as well. That just you got to build confidence and learn to realize that even though you're, as you say, close to that panic mode, you're still able to take it a little down, find like partially that zen, and then you move on. And then based on that experience, you can next time maybe more confident, knowing that, okay, I feel this, but that's okay because I can calm down a little more. Yeah. And then you become this person that is more and more capable.
Yeah. more and more capable of engaging the things that matter most.
Yeah.
Right? The things that are really, really intense, like these moments
Yeah.
of vulnerability with relationships are
Exactly.
terrifying, especially when you're in the middle of a fight and you have to remember that you love the person and the point that you're trying to make is not as important as the love, you know? To me, that's all the same skill of being able to work in the hot kitchen of high physical emotions, you know, because to me, emotion is a physical response, and bring it down enough to keep the brain working and say, well, what matters most right now?
It is seriously tricky, isn't it? And it's something about the courage to just express yourself, to just dare to express what you feel or how things are. And it can be the hardest thing in the world.
It can, but it's the only game in town.
I know. It can be so much easier to just jump off a mountain.
It's true. But I feel like even in that, there's relationships, there's team cooperations where there's emotions and there's love, and there's, you know, this process of human interaction that makes it all worthwhile. To climb up a mountain and jump off all by yourself, to me, is it's not as interesting as when we share this with friends. You know?